smo sve renovirali i ogroman novac uložili, samo tu nadstrešnicu nismo renovirali. Zašto? Ne znam.
Good evening once more and welcome to These Days Only panel, and thanks to Leila nicely introduced this theme. I wouldn't waste no more time and I will cut to the chase with the first set of questions. And we'll start with Professor Popović. What underlying political, social and economic factors have contributed to the current crisis in Serbia?
We start with the hardest question, I presume. Well, I would say it's of course not an easy answer nor a quick one, but one needs to be efficient. And I have to say maybe that what we could start with is the fact that maybe the politicians and citizens of Serbia did not realize the significance of the fall of the Berlin Wall and also the invasion of Ukraine. These were very pivotal moments in global and European history that were maybe not perceived as they should be. So the sluggish responses and the fledgling democracy that is being, or has been stifled now for 13 years, have made the situation in Serbia rather complicated, and also the key point of the fact that there are no free media, or very few media that are free in Serbia, and especially there is no national frequency that can speak openly about affairs and are not affected by the government. So in a nutshell, this gives us a rather complex situation. On the other hand, during all of this time, we have many people who have been inspired by Ksenia Atanasijević, and therefore I find this reflection about her, or for this conference, also very important, because it has put the university in the forefront and the students as the most active part of society in the role of not only being personally active, but also inciting and motivating citizens to start a change. So I think that we can also speak about a very fragile democracy and a lack of tradition for dialogue and tolerant dialogue. So when you put all of these things together, and of course I've forgotten, I mean, as I said, you can't put it into 2 minutes, but with the slow stifling and actually suffocating of independent institutions and the loss of rule of law, we have slowly come to a situation where something had to happen, and unfortunately it was a tragedy that is sometimes beyond comprehension because it didn't have to happen. But unfortunately it did, and this was a very rude awakening for all of us that actually no one is safe in this country anymore, that every aspect of our daily life can be somehow compromised by the actions of the current government. So here we are, after more than a year of student-led protests. I think we have made considerable progress, but there's still much work to be done and much sacrifice to be made. And I think in that respect, the timing of this conference is very good, because I hope that the conversations that will happen in the next 3 days will maybe help to pave the path for further steps and actions.
And when we speak about political aspect, Mr. Stefanović, how has the ruling party's control over state institutions and media shaped the current political deadlock? Not just current, but let's focus on the past year.
Well, what we see in the last 1 year since this peaceful revolution, anti-corruption revolution has started, is just a culmination of 13 years of full grip over the institutions from our regime and over the media. So what we see now is something that became more obvious to some people, but it was there for 13 years. The second thing is that it actually is crippling any attempts from, let's say, a large part of Serbia, majority Serbia right now, to liberate itself from the shackles of this regime. So what we are witnessing right now is this peaceful, clever, I would say, revolution that is anti-corruptive revolution, but it's also a revolution led by the students and citizens and opposition parties and NGO sector and free media. So we are all standing in one front. It has nothing to do with political aspirations or future elections, but it's basically what we are witnessing is all majority of people of Serbia simply want one thing, that Serbia finally becomes normal society based on the rule of law, with accountability, with dignity, and with the fact that when you break the law, you go and face the court, you go to jail, and you don't go to become a minister in the government. And I think that our regime will continue to hold as tight as they can to the media and to the institutions. They will not allow even one single voice of discontent from within inside of the system. And this is another, I would call it the secondary problem that we are facing, which is the clash of two concepts. One concept is, and I will finish with this, is the concept that quite often comes from some circles from our friends in Brussels, and that is the concept in which simply as long as you have a process, you don't have to have a conclusion. After all, we had at least 6 processes without any conclusion, without any results. So we are witnessing yet another attempt to find another process as a sacred cow, which will follow because simply it's a process. And there will be no conclusion because our regime is simply absolutely, and I think it's a high noon that our interlocutors and partners in the European Union understand, our regime has absolutely no intention to join European Union because if they make another further steps toward integration, they would collapse from power. So they don't have any interest to join. And of course, this game, which is basically a game of Mr. Vučić trying to be Tito from AliExpress, is coming to an end because you simply physically cannot sit on 4 chairs without bumping on floor. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now that is happening. And I think that the whole conclusion of this historic moment for Serbia will come in the elections. And we believe that elections should come as soon as possible, as long as we try everything we can to make electoral conditions more fair and democratic without excluding the, let's say, demand for early elections. I'm simply saying that we should try whatever we can, all of us, to prevent the regime from stealing yet another elections, because they've been stealing for 13 years, to try at least partly to liberate some of the media, and at least to try to represent to a large chunk of our society the truth about the life that surrounds us and events that were actually pushing us down to the darkest tubes of civilization. Thank you.
Mrs. Stojanović, Mr. Stefanović just mentioned NGO sector is one of the participants in this joint effort that we saw for the last year. To what extent does the crisis reflect the broader erosion of democratic norms across the Western Balkans?
Well, I would say that it's not only across the Western Balkans. I think that we are witnessing now the global world crisis, and I also believe that we are witnessing now the different kind of crisis also within the European Union. So basically, when we talk about democracy, we have to know that democracy doesn't have borders. But democracy, it's a system of connected vessels. If in some place mimicry of democracy exists, it will be repeated and copy-paste all over. So basically at this point we are talking about Serbia, who was always, I would say, a leader in the Balkans, but sometimes good, sometimes bad. And we are now also leading the capture state, principle which can be repeated in the rest of the Balkans. We have some of the states which very nicely are trying to push forward and succeeding to push forward on European path, but on the other side, those are the small steps forward. But I'm really much afraid that if we don't see through what this government is doing, and Borko nicely said, like some people are seeing it more at this point, something that was visible and present throughout the years, and from 2012, and I would say mostly from 2015, that people were seeing that institution by institution we lost. We lost independent media. We lost like on the national frequencies. We lost the separation of power completely. We lost freedom of election. And I would say and remind everybody that we lost this from the moment of the start of European integration process. And my conclusion is that we cannot count on any process. We cannot count on the European Union integration process if there is no political will of the government to go to that path. Like earlier, even without the process itself, we built independent institutions. We today had two important events, I would like to remind you. First event was celebration of the 15 years of the Commissioner of Equality. Nobody from the government was there. This is independent institution, the last independent institution in Serbia, which in the same time was shut down in the assembly when they elected and proposed the person who will not continue this independence. So basically, I really believe in the people of this state. I really believe in the people of this country. I believe, especially, I don't think any of us had this much hope in the young people, because we also believe that they are not talking the same language, they are not seeing what is going on outside. But now it's even more hopeful, I would say, because young people are the ones who told us that we are not right. And the young people are the ones who are telling us that we need to see through much more of things. And I would mention just at the end, the question that I got a lot is why the European Union flag is not on the protests. And I would say they need to deserve it. They really need to deserve it, because we are talking now about the fight against corruption. We're talking now about the rule of law. And I believe that also European Union role is to show that their values are the ones that they carry through these hard times. And one small disagreement, if I might, with Borko, because he said that his government doesn't want to enter European Union. I really think they want, but they want to enter European Union established as Hungary or European Union in which AfD in Germany has won, or FPO in Austria has won. So basically, we all have a different view of this European Union, and I really believe that the right view of European Union is the one that is set up in the key, based on dignity, based on rule of law, and based on democracy. And this is the fight, I think, that young people here on the streets are now also fighting. It's not only for Serbia, it is for democratic values in the whole world.
Mr. Lazović, Mr. Stefanović mentioned elections as something to add to the equation of the solution of this crisis sooner or later. In your opinion, what role do opposition parties and independent media play or can play in challenging authoritarian practices?
First of all, good evening, everybody. And I would just like to add something on Maja's sense of what she was saying. Yes, but we also, when you're speaking about this, that Vučić has the ambition to get to the European Union, which is a union of Orban and AfD, well, we also have our ambitions to be the Europe of Greens and Left or Social Democrats. And the good thing is that there is a framework in which you can compete with the arguments, politics, and your own cleverness to, fight for the one ambition that you want, and then in the end we always go to this, that we are actually fighting for the democracy and the possibility to choose what kind of Serbia we want to live in. And to go back to your question, well, I think that some really logical solution would be elections. Elections should be, could be solution for the big crisis that Serbia is having. It's a social, political, economical, soon to be obvious crisis, and any other crisis that we now are living for. But I would say that this crisis and also the struggle against this continued crisis is not only last year. Last year we had the most tragic year. We had the biggest tragedy, the biggest obvious act of corruption that was with the fall of Canopy, and we had historically biggest protests and biggest motivation of the citizen to participate into them. But I would say that it is the continuation both of crisis but both of struggle that's coming from the times before that. And if we are speaking about the elections, well, we have a new problem now. When society is such divided as ours is, in the end, elections can resolve the crisis, but it can continue the crisis because nobody is going to believe any institution in this moment. So when students did something really, I would say, bold, and I would say huge responsibility has been taken from their part when they said, okay, we will ask for the elections, never mind the electoral conditions, which has been a huge topic for a long time. And now we have big motivation, which is obvious, but this motivation needs to be bigger than the fraud that Vučić will for sure develop some other ways. We always have some new ways of electoral fraud that we found in any other electoral process. So I think that it is really risky in speaking about the elections, because they can be resolvement of the crisis, but they can also be continuation of deepening of the crisis if the electoral fraud would be even bigger than it was before. Does anybody has any I don't know, dilemma? Will elections be fraud? Will there be electoral fraud?
Will they be fair?
I am for sure certain that they will not be fair, but I'm more concerned in will we win, because we saw in Kosjerić, we saw in Zaječar that we were on really close of not winning. We saw everything that was happening. We saw buying of votes. We saw influence of the voters. We saw a campaign that in one small Kosjerić, they spent, I don't know, millions of euros. I can imagine they spending all this to Serbia and then, pressuring citizens and so on. And that's why our stance from the Green Left Front, but I think a logical idea is that we need to coordinate all the anti-regime, anti-criminal, anti-corrupt organizations and strengths into joint dialogue on how will we combat this. How will we, there is three crucial questions that we all need to ask ourselves, and I'm thinking students, organizations of civil society, political parties, anybody who wants to liberate Serbia. First thing is, how to make Vučić, how to get to the elections. How we will make him get to the elections? I think that he doesn't want to make any elections in this moment because he is afraid that he's losing support. He doesn't want to be held responsible for what happened, and he wants to continue to steal on the big projects, infrastructural projects like Expo and similar. So the first question is how to get the elections. The second question is how to win on these elections if we are all agreeing that there is going to be electoral fraud and the elections will not be fair. What are the mechanisms that we will use? I don't think that the control on the elections is enough. We started training and organizing controllers several months ago, and I know other organizations too. Okay, that's one thing, but how will we combat media? How will we get to people that doesn't have free media? How will we? Students did some huge positive steps in these directions, but will it be enough? How to combat this? And the third thing is how to defend people that are having attacks from the government. I think that is super important. We don't have this luxury to, say, well, whatever, for the ones that are targeted by the government, especially people, educational workers, teachers, professors, and others, and now, of course, in any branch, I'm thinking. We are trying to offer free legal help. We are trying to offer what we can, but I think that it would be better if we coordinate these strengths. And I would say that this is something that is left for the next months or the next phase, that we need to coordinate all the powers to combat this criminal regime.
Mr. Simić, do you see student movement as the answer to these challenges that Mr. Lazović said? Not only, but you can see it in that way also. And how have student-led and grassroots movements mobilized public dissatisfaction that we used to have in the years before into sustained protest?
Yeah, I think I can give an answer on both of those questions in probably one thought. Well, when we see the student protest from outside, I don't think that is a completely correct picture, because there are a lot of stuff that we do inside that are actually very important for our success. If we look at that angle from the organizing standpoint of the students, we behaved inside like we want to see our country be one day. So if we want democracy, we want justice, we want to establish a system between ourselves that we can actually participate in the decision-making choices when we organize the protests, how we're going to articulate politically our protests, how we're going to behave towards the public. So I think that giving that equality to all of the students of all of the universities is really important, especially for young people to feel included, to actually have the feeling of I am able to participate and I can make a change through my actions. So I think that is most important. The second thing why I think the student protest is really successful, because we are practically a really non-traditional actor in Serbia. I believe, as also a young person, that most of the people lost trust in traditional political institutions. I'm saying courts, assembly, Serbian parliament, political parties. That's practically the trend all over the world, and that's where we emerged as young people who are fighting for justice, who have pure intents, who are not hungry for power, or they just don't want to overthrow the government. They actually want a better future for themselves. So I believe that if we look at it from inside and outside, that was kind of a recipe for our success. And when we talk about coordinating with opposition, when we practically all layers of the society, I just want to explain the student position on this. As practically the biggest movement and a political factor in Serbia, we have a lot of weight on our shoulders, and it's really pressing, and we have a lot of responsibility. Practically every decision we make can influence millions of people, and we take into account every factor when it comes to traditional political institutions, also opposition parties and everything. We just need to be safe, we need to be secure that the moves we make and the actions we take are actually good for the Serbian people and can actually help us change the system and change the government. So I think that students sometimes seem like they don't want to talk about some stuff and they have some I don't know, hard stances which are non-negotiable, but as a student here and somebody who participates in the action, I would say that that is because of all the weight that we carry. I honestly believe that the future of this fight depends mostly on students, not only on students, but they are seen, and we are seen as a group of people who will lead towards the freedom, as the name of the conference. So. Yes, I would like to underline with this that there is a lot of responsibility. We had our success, but we also need to make smart moves and be really careful with our next actions and the way we act with other actors.
And so far, what strategies have proven most effective for mobilizing young people?
I believe that the best strategy was actually the one that was the first 4 demands we had. If you are following right now the student protests, they pretty much seem like anti-Vučić, anti-government, but at the start they were not anti-Vučić and anti-government. They were anti-systemic protests. We actually did not want a change of government. We just wanted justice for the people who died on 1st of November. We wanted people who attacked students on protests to be arrested, and we want innocent students who were arrested to be released. So we never mentioned Vučić. We didn't even want to speak to him, but he is probably, I don't know, the capo of the organized crime mafia we have in Serbia. He felt the duty to address us. We actually did not want to speak to Vučić, and I think it was May 5th, we made a big step, I believe, in the right direction by asking for parliamentary election and saying, okay, we cannot change the system if we do not change this government and this regime. System is a really big thing. It's not just a government or the president or the prime minister or the people in the parliament. It's also the way we think, also the values that we share in our society. But as long as we have this government, we don't have the basic means we need to actually build democratic culture in a way that's supposed to be in the healthy and normal democratic society. So I think that institutional approach, rather than, as we would say, a political approach, was the main key and was the thing that put us closer actually with people and for people to see clear on our demands.
And Maja, what strategies can civic movements use to maintain momentum under conditions of repression?
Well, there are different strategies. I think the most important strategy is to actually work on what you know how to do. Because there is, when you say civil society, everybody believes that's one group or other group of organizations or somebody who does just one thing. The civil society is very heterogeneous. We have a very good local civil society organizations who are doing different kind of actions and activities on the ground. But at this point, and since November last year, actually in December after the protest started, the only role of the civil society, or the main role of the civil society, was to actually provide support support and legal aid and whatever students needed in particular time. I think that we need to let, as a civil society, students to take a lead, and I'm very happy that somebody wants to take a lead. So there is no reason that civil society try to take some role in the revolution as such, like this peaceful way of asking and changing the new system. And I think that we need to acknowledge also as a civil society, since we were working for decades on the democracy and human rights and everything else, that we failed. We have to understand that. We failed because it's not still this kind of system that young people are asking now. So basically, I really hope that we can serve as a support or just like a knowledge well, that if they need something, they can take it. But I'm really, really happy that they are there to actually see through to the different kinds of mimicry or to the different kinds of, for example, at the beginning, as Aleksa mentioned, the jurisdiction of the president at some point. So basically, I think we need to do our fights for the fights that we know how to do, and they don't have to be related with organizing protests or something the students already know how to do. But I think that the fight we led as a civil society, but also universities, also film industry and everything else in this election of REM, it was a very important fight. And I would just like to add that, to say very openly, I think we won that fight. We won the elections for independent body of electronic media because we got 5 people out of 9. Those elections were won. What happened is that government at the end, in the assembly meeting, they didn't want to recognize that. And not recognizing that could also happen after the elections, because it doesn't matter, we were talking about free and fair elections, if some elections are won, if the government doesn't recognize the results. And this is, for example, where CRTA, as a monitoring of elections would be very helpful. This is where we can say as a civil society and try to put a light on those things which are happening. But at this point, I think I'm still hoping, I have to say, I'm still hoping that the government will recognize that the independent actors won at the election. They have still the chance to do for them. They still have the chance to do that. And if they do that, in the just couple of months, we can re-elect the governing boards of RTS and RTV, which are like their mandate is over. The national frequency can be given in the just couple of months to Nova S, who already applied, and the stop is put. So basically, we are now at the position that either government recognize that independent actors won the election and show that there is some at least small will to actually repair and make free and fair, more freer and more fair elections, or they will stop as they tried, and they are succeeding at this point, stop this REM from functioning. And I would just also add that is then on European Union if they will see through this mimicry and actually check the box of some future REM, which will be completely independent, is elected or not. So basically, I think those are the free elections in elections in the last year that we won. And we have to recognize that we won it, no matter that the government doesn't recognize it, because we know what this government is, and we can just learn from this process. I hope it can be learn a lot from this process, and to actually make plans and how to overcome this situation if it really happens also on the parliamentary elections.
And as these protests spread to a year, in Saturday it would be exactly a year since they started in front of Faculty for Dramatic Arts in Belgrade on 22nd of November last year. Universities in the core beside the students. So, Professor Popović, how would you describe the university position over the past year? It has defended itself against regime attacks, supported student demands, and managed delayed lectures despite insufficient funds and decreased payouts. How resilient has university proven to be?
Well, I think universities globally are facing constant threats. So resilience is the key to the survival of universities. I think what's happening in Serbia is one of those maybe more extreme cases where resilience is being tested. Of course, this last year was maybe the most extreme, but we have been witnessing a strangling of university autonomy for years now during the reign of this government. And through various changes in the law on higher education, also the fine-tunings of other laws and then the introduction of new laws have actually enabled the government to control state universities in Serbia in terms of who will be running the universities. And this way of controlling universities, I think they had the assumption that the universities could be kept under control, or at least be in the service of the government, as all other independent institutions have been hijacked, except the Commissioner for Human Rights that Maja mentioned. So in that respect, Serbian universities are trained in resilience. One major test of that resilience was, of course, during the pandemic. But what we witnessed last year was something different, because it showed a solidarity and a union of the academic community, because the academic community may be defined, in the broadest sense, that it's not just teachers, non-teaching staff, researchers, the students also, and everyone else who is engaged or interested in what's going on at a university. So we really had this joint action of the academic community to incite social change. And the students responded to violence on November 22nd of last year, and they were immediately supported by their professors, and then gradually the rest of the population. So I think in that respect, we shouldn't worry about the resilience of universities in Serbia and about their future. What we can talk about is how we will reconstruct and rebuild what will remain in terms of the ruins that have been caused by this government. Because the irregularity in funding, the pressure, the trying to influence various human resource decisions, this has all weakened the university. And what the latest move we've seen, that a parliament is forcing down the university's throat this new faculty for Serbian studies, which is no one in any way means to negate the need for studies on national issues. But what we are seeing now is actually the punishment of a faculty, the Faculty of Philosophy in Niš, that was one of the most prominent in the protests, and a way to try to divide it into two parts, one that will be compliant with the government, and the other, well, who cares about what's remaining? So the university will be playing, and is playing, an important role, because the whole academic community, together with active citizens, will be the drivers of change, and also the sources of the knowledge that is necessary to rebuild our country, because we will need the knowledge to renew our institutions. We need new teachers that will strengthen our educational system, because one of the reasons why this government was so successful in actually anesthetizing us all was the fact that the educational system was so put under pressure, and students were not really allowed to practice democracy, learning sufficiently about democracy. So the path, or the tasks ahead of us, are huge, and the university will play a key role. And one thing that has been very important, and with this I will finish, maybe a distrust that existed toward universities has now been resolved. I think the public knows where the university stands, and I thank the students for this, because without knowledge and education, really no country can prosper. And in this case of Serbia, we've really seen this, that this is very, very true. So yes, universities will be important, and they will survive.
These protests last for 1 year, but also one question lasts for 1 year. And this is the question, can protests translate into lasting political organization or institutional reform, or will they remain episodic? And this is the question for all of you. Let us start with Mr. Stefanović.
I don't think this is episodic. I think this is I would say, a glorious culmination of a long, long protest that started 4 years ago in Serbia. For years, we have freedom rolling in the streets of our cities and towns. I think that the students and the people actually woke up one important part of our society. That society, that part of our society that was woken now, awake now, was in a lullaby for 13 years. Under the sentences, it will not touch me. I'm far away from it. I don't really care about this. Now I think that this part of our society finally understands that it comes for everybody. No one is immune, and no one can be hid from this regime. I don't think that a good approach coming from this protest, and one thing is I'm certain, and that is that this regime is gone. The only question is how we will do it, whether it will be a normal, peaceful, civilized way, which we stand for, or which will shift the whole situation to a dark scenario. We must avoid that. And I think that no one should have a, let's say, illusion in their hearts and minds that you can make a vegetarian out of tiger, which I'm flattering the regime when I compare it to the tiger. I have another animal in my mind, but I will not use it. So you cannot make halfway solutions with them. If we learned anything in last 1 year, I will stick only to 1 year, is that this regime right now, since you know foreign policy is my cup of tea, so I'm sharing with a lot of members and good friends and colleagues from diplomatic corps here, what they already know. Our regime is frequently, in the last few months, saying to foreign, or let's say Western interlocutors, everything will be great, it would be excellent as long as we finally have some consensus in our society, but wow, you know, nobody wants to talk to us, so poor us. We are ready to talk with the students, with the opposition, with everybody, but they don't want to talk with us. In the same day, every day, they call the students and the opposition and the citizens of this great country terrorists, ustaše, murderers, filthy blockaders, and whatever you want to call them. They are provoking and tolerating attacks on a mother that is on a hunger strike for a lost son. They're doing all sorts of nasty things daily. And the same people are saying to the European Union, only if we had someone to talk with. So you talk for 13 years. For 13 years, clouded in organized crime, whom you are connected, on almost fully controlled media. And you talk about, let's have another process. Maybe we will give, 4 people, but we will not give 5 people for the REM. No, because 5 people, or God forbid 6 people, or God forbids what we stand for, 9 professional, objective, non-party, people, would immediately clean the media, butchery that actually exists in Serbia for 13 years, and they cannot stand that. They cannot survive that, because every voter in a remote parts of Serbia without access to N1 and Nova S, which is 2/3 of our society, believe that the students and the people, and especially opposition, are terrorists and traitors to our country. So under this situation, they talk about alignment of Serbia with foreign and security policy. For example, we talk in a day that Serbia again aligned with the Russian Federation, again concerning resolution on denazification. As an ardent anti-fascist, when I read the text, wow, I see it's not really about denazification, it's about Ukraine. And we voted with Russia. And we have German foreign minister in town. Now, I wonder, what can be the topic of the talks? Can we finally call the spade and say, well, listen, guys, this President, Mr. Vučić, and his regime are lying to you. They're lying to the people of Serbia first and foremost. They're destroying our country in every aspect, and they're selling you a lip service for 13 years that there are some sort of a Max Weber, Jaspers, you know, newly found woke liberals and Protestant ethic promoters. No, they're old-fashioned Serbian radical party, blood and turf politicians. So people should finally realize that. We should shed off our illusions and look to the horizon, which we have elections that waits for us. In those elections, we will not only have to defend the right to vote, which is a basic, fundamental thing, but we will have to defend the results of these elections. So this is what brings the unease and scare amongst many people that we talk frequently in the West and in European Union, and they realize what is good of the elections and nobody accepts the results. And we cannot accept results that are based on thievery, that are based on electoral fraud, that are based on violence and arrests of students, but also other people in Serbia. We are the only country in Europe in which you go to Kosjerić to cast a vote. In order to do that, you have to go through the cordon of police. Name me another country in this continent. And people in the council, in the commission, talk about clusters. What are the clusters what we have in front of the National Assembly? Which actually cluster that is? Chatsiland. Can somebody explain me that? What is this? Our dear colleague from Kiev, I'm sure he can make some comparisons to their situation back in the day. So what I'm saying is we have to be determined, we have to be patient, which we don't have, which is a capital we don't have, unfortunately, and we have to be wise. We have to understand that the victory comes in the elections, but we have to make sure that everything goes peacefully and that people of Serbia finally have a chance to say to give their voice and to cast their ballot to whomever they want without intimidation and pressure, which they have for 13 years in this country. Thank you.
Aleksa, when we speak about crisis, that means that crisis can be overcome and things can be all the same. But is this a crisis or a grassroots reform from within that will reshape Serbia's society and political culture?
Yeah, I believe when we look at the whole society, it is a crisis. It is a crisis because of violence, because of a polarization, and because of the whole mood that you have in our society. When you, as Mr. Stefanović said, when you go in front of the National Assembly, you will see some, I don't know, state-backed thugs who will let you in or not let you in, depending on whether you're a supporter of the Serbian Progressive Party or not. So in that sense, it is a big crisis. It can escalate any moment. But when we talk about the long-term, the long-term questions, I love to think about it because it's positive, and I think that democratic culture in Serbia for the past 9 months, when we talk about the people who did not actively take part in a life in this country and did not want to mix to actually ruin their day with everyday politics and everything, I believe that we made a great improvement there. And I think that when we talk about democratic culture, that is one of the, I would say, one of the biggest aspects of our heritage of the student protests, because when all of this is done and we change the regime, and I would also like to agree again with Mr. Stefanović, I think that Vučić regime is out by, I don't know, 2027 for sure. We'll just see how. That depends on them. When that ends, you will have thousands of young people who are ready to take part in everyday life. People that will cast their votes, that will turn out amongst young people will be much better, and we will see active young people who will take responsibility for what is happening in their society. So on one hand, it is a really worrying situation when we look in the next few months, but when we look long term, I think that Serbia has a bright future and can become a democratic society. I'm not saying that when we change the government that all of the efforts are gone, but that is the first and crucial step if we want to actually go down the road of democratization of our country. Right now, when we talk about that crisis, it is a really, it's a hard times to be a student, but we hope that we can resolve the situation as quick as we can, as best as we can for the Serbian people, and actually to go down that road, because it's extremely tough when we look at every day what is happening on the streets.
Maja, do you believe that this movement can result in sort of reform of society that comes from the citizens and not from the institutions?
I really do. I think we need this movement, and not only young people, as we already said, but everybody joining this fight, because I think it can not only it can lead to the democracy building and the institution building, but I think that globally since for example Brexit happened, or Trump came to power in the second term, I think we are completely sure that institutions are not only ones that are important. They are important, but the building of democracy has to come from grassroots level, has to come from the people, and people have to build it literally every day. If we create, and if this movement actually create this atmosphere, which I think already succeeded, but just to continue creating this atmosphere in which all of us see ourselves as a building stones to the democracy, I think then it will be so much easier to build institutions again, to build a system and structure that will actually support citizens to participate in the decision making all the time, not only in the elections. And this could really bring us to the democracy which is real and which is organic.
We recently saw some efforts in unifying opposition parties and movements. How do you see these developments? This is the question for two members of parliament we have here in this panel. So, Radomir, are you preparing for the election? And if so, which parties do you anticipate aligning with, apart from party that you signed last week?
Excuse me for doing this second time, but if I can just add something to the debate before, and also to maybe give some I don't know, different thoughts. I'm not so sure that we are on such a guaranteed way to the change and everything is going to be okay. I think that the dark side is not sitting with their hands crossed. I think that we are in a moment that this can go in any way. This can go to the change, and this could also go to another disappointment. Well, whatever, but the disappointment of people. I think also, I mean, can you relate to this, that one day you wake up and you feel all this potential that there is in this society that Aleksa was telling about, that there is this huge amount of young people ready to take part of this, that there is potential that Serbia can be something else, but the next day you wake up and you see that we are actually losing some stuff that we had, some institutions that we had. Look what's happening with with universities that are in the huge pressure. We are not talking about now, we are not talking about individuals in the university. We are talking about losing the whole faculties in this moment. Do we see what's happening with the media? We were speaking about independent media having a hard time working. Now they are not under threat. They are now Ustaše. They are now the Minister of Information is thinking how to find some new innovative ways to kill off all the media that we have. That's the bad day that I'm talking about. But I think that in this moment things are breaking. That in these moments we see that all these beautiful scenes that we had maybe they will not happen again if it is up to the government. And I wouldn't say that we are on a guaranteed way of success. I am both personally afraid and politically, let's say, worried. Are we going to use this opportunity? It's a great opportunity. It's a huge potential.
But what you personally think that is a recipe for going forward with all these obstacles that you mentioned?
I think that there is going to be, we need some political articulation, or more political articulation. I'm not saying that there's none. I think that we need more political articulation in this. Let's speak about in general of what's happening in this moment. I think that we need some clear stances that we stand and answering to questions. My party, Green Left Front, has we created this strategic partnership with our colleagues from Pokret Slobodnih Građana that we said clearly that we want Serbia to be part of European Union. We don't want Serbia to be left in this limbo space in which we are trying to get to union, but we are not, and we are in back doors of something that is actually Wild West, in which you can always say that, you know, well, we're trying, but we're not for this European Union or something like that. We think that that's the best way to go. And I think there is nothing wrong with clear ideas that you are standing for. And I also respect others that think maybe this is not a great way, but I think that they are wrong. And we need to learn how to work together with those that we don't agree. And that is something that is really, that students have shown us in a really good way. But as I said, the dark side will try to use our differences to confront us, to put us against each other. And as I said in my first talk, I think that the key is to cooperate. I think that the key is to coordinate. It doesn't have to be, you know, when you say this coordinate in media, they would always ask you, so do you want to be on a student's list or something like that? No, we don't want to be on a student list. We said that on first moment. But we want to coordinate with students. We want to coordinate with the fellow opposition parties, with everybody. I don't need to give you the list. We want to coordinate. We want to know exactly how is the best way to attack this regime and to get to be effective into this. And I think that there shouldn't be things that we are thinking what the other side is doing, how, and so on. I think that we need to make a dialogue, and I think that we need to make steps in how to be sure that we are closer to the change of this regime, and also through the elections. I think that there is this, yes, I agree also that we are probably Vučić cannot amass what he had before, and I think that we are going towards the change, but when and with what cost? Is there going to be new violence? Is there going to be maybe even people that lose their lives? We can only imagine this happening, because we are close to this. I would not like to see this. I would like us to, you know, get to the elections as soon as possible, to try to do whatever we can so we don't have, to minimize the electoral fraud, because I'm certain there will be one. And I think that we need to win on this, because this kind of opportunity against this kind of authoritarian regime, I'm not sure that we will have soon, because they can be more authoritarian, they can be more violent, there can be more people that are arrested, and I wouldn't like to see this. And that's why I think that we all need to contribute into this, and we need to pull our strengths together and try to, you know, do whatever we can from different roles in different ways, but coordinated.
So speaking of student lists, Aleksa, recently you said that list is 90% or so finished, done, ready. Is there a list, or is it a divert to hold the ruling structure on the edge?
No, there is a list, and we have practically, for those who do not know, we practically choose the people who we believe they can represent the people of Serbia and who deserve our trust as students to be members of the parliament. Those will be the people who are not from the opposition party, since Mr. Lazović said.
Is this a list of wish? Have you contacted potential participants?
Yeah, we have a whole list, and we have more people than we need. And when I said 99%, I just meant the minor changes of who is going onto the list, who is not going onto the list, but we have people ready. And we hope that those people, I mean, we believe that those people can actually represent the people of Serbia and can be a good opponent, even if we have that fraud at the day of the elections, and they can bring the victory. So it was a really, that was not an easy thing to do, to just say, okay, we work for something for like 6-7 months, and to just give our, to trust, the trust that we got from the people, to just give to 250 people. It was a really hard choice, and we debated it for like a month and a half, 2 months, because the 15th of March was also a big date. We did not come up with the elections on that day. And that is a really, I think, interesting point in the students' movement to be studied one day, because I don't see a lot of student movements being transformed into lists, into straight political movements with some kind of a program. What exactly do we want to change and how do we want to change it? We mostly see young people going out to the streets, and that being articulated by the opposition parties. We practically did not want to go that way, but we made some kind of an experiment, and I believe that experiment is doing good for now. I think. And
is this delaying of the announcement of this list some kind of experiment? How long will you delay this?
That's practically a strategic thing, because if we see what happens to us as students who are practically not running for government or for parliament or for anything, what happens to us in pro-government media, we can only assume what would happen to those candidates. If we don't want to give them time and straight targets until we have the elections. So that is a basic need to protect those people, because most of those people were already attacked by the regime.
Do you not afraid of losing a momentum?
No, we are not afraid of losing the momentum, because maybe we disagree. Mr. Lazović maybe has a little pessimistic view of the things, but I think, and I feel the energy on the streets, and I know that we have the energy, and that energy is not always to the roof. It cannot be. I think it's natural, but I think it just changes shapes. And when we asked for parliamentary elections, we wanted it to change shape, because we cannot expect from people to be 72 hours on the street and not actually make some kind of a big move or accomplish the things that we want to. So we said, okay, we know that the majority of Serbia supports us. We want for people to, we want to go the institutional way. We want for them to just cross out the name that they want to vote on that list. And I believe that was the right way. It was in the spirit of our fight. It's an institutional, democratic, and non-violent way, as we already said it.
Previous joint effort from students and opposition political parties on this day, 29 years ago, 17th of November, 96, was resolved through international mediation and parliament adopting lex specialis. Mr. Stefanović, do you see, with all differences in contexts, possibility for international mediation, EU, for example, and the role of National Assembly in resolving this political crisis?
Well, we all asked for it, but we asked for a chance to talk through somebody about the changing electoral conditions under the recommendations or findings of OSCE audit mission. And I think that's an overall position everywhere in Europe, that these recommendations and findings should be finally fully implemented in Serbia. But what is of great concern, I have to say right now, that is practically this possible missions coming from Serbia will eventually happen, I'm sure, and there will be fact-finding missions. There will be no, I'm much more skeptical about mediation. I think that the train has left the station a long time ago, unfortunately. And it means that we should all try whatever we can through the pressure in the institutions and out of the institutions, like we do, to try, as Radomir said, to try to prevent the thievery and, rigging yet another elections in Serbia, which we are all in different capacities are witnesses of. And I'll give you one example. I don't think that it is possible even to explain to international interlocutors about the fact that you have, I don't know, small power station or power generator on which you have 56 people registered to vote, or that you have, I don't know, apartment with 35 people registered to vote, but that actually don't live there, that actually are brought to vote on local elections, which is absolutely illegal, and we are still talking about it. We are still went a little bit further from initial shock from people in European Union when they hear something like this even being possible. That's why I don't believe that Europe of Vucic's dreams or Orban's dreams is possible, because that Europe of their dreams is in full opposition, in full contrast to Europe as it is, as it should be, and as it was. It would be like accepting the destruction of your own home. And I think that what we can do, and actually what we must do, is to try to ring the bell everywhere we can, not to allow the regime to continue with, this completely, biased arrests or arrests without any legal ground of people, beating up the students and the people, citizens and opposition, following opposition activists and putting them under several months arrests, what had happened to Free Citizens Movement. These are the things that are actually, this story writes itself. That's why I'm saying it's absolutely not possible to make any progress on EU integrations, to be on equal side with your own European family when you have something like this actually happening in your home by the government, by the regime, not by some spirit that is flying over us. This is really concrete and it's happening. And I think that I'm a little bit more optimistic. I know all the imperfections. I know all the problems that we have. I know numerous organized, even by the Secret Service, attempts by the regime to put, to build a rift between us and the students, and the rift between anyone actually who is trying to change the country. If you want to make our autocrat or a dictator happy, just continue doing this. So I think we should really look over this and to go beyond this, because this is nonsense. What they're trying to do is to divide us. This is as old as the world. As a dear young colleague said, old institutions and old ways and old, I don't know any older institutions still exist, even before the modern democracy, which is university. Probably that's the oldest thing, and I believe in it, by the way. And I don't think there is a better thing than the old university. I think we should keep it that way. We should make it better for the students, for the future of this country. But we are facing a regime that wants to destroy university. They are saying it publicly. They are saying these things. I don't know what else should they do, They did the Red Square, they did the, Tiananmen, they did everything, What else you need? What new proof you need? More arrests, more beaten people? More students with shackles on father's funeral? This is, it's a process. It's a long, painful process. We have to be patient, but we have to see the horizon. The freedom comes for us by ourselves, not by anybody else. This is our homework, and we will do it. But we must not allow for Vucic to keep Serbia in a black, isolated box in which he can do whatever he wants. This is his dream as well. And I think, and I will finish with this, the winter of his content by Richard III of Shakespeare actually shall not pass. It will remain, and because the glorious son of York comes with this peaceful uprising in Serbia.
And with that, we have some time left in this panel, so we are now open to questions from the audience. If someone wants to ask a question, just raise the hand, and someone from the Belgrade.
If I may say just a sentence, while you are getting the questions, just to say I'm not that pessimistic as I might sound. I just want to stress that out. Maybe I thundered too much.
Maybe I'm just an idealist.
No, that is...
So I see some hands, and
Actually, great.
I see assistants wearing mics. So please, who will be the first?
Thank you. I'm Kurt Basiner from Democratization Policy Council based in Sarajevo. I guess my question's sort of been implicit throughout the discussion. What it seems to me that you're all discussing is implicitly is a social contract that's essentially it's been manifested in various ways, and that's the potential connective tissue among all the elements that are trying to fight for a just, dignified society under rule of law. Could that be articulated in a more concrete way that could be an umbrella or banner under which the democratic forces, for lack of a better term, could assemble prior to there being a declared election, prior to there being a public student list, prior to even the modalities of cooperation among the democratic forces in electoral process? Is that a potential avenue to concretize this and perhaps get the West off the fence where they remain, unfortunately? Thank you.
Maybe a few more questions, and then we will wrap up because we don't have much time. Maybe one or two more. There were some hands risen. Yes, please.
Hi, Miodrag Miličević, NGO Active, Note Mitrovica. I've got a concrete question, actually, and I would like really to thank to every single one of you, of course, in the panel. And it is basically related to something which is crystal clear and quite obvious, of course. You spoke about the election integrity, you spoke about the voters list, etc. We all that you outlined basically that the election will be most likely, of course, manipulated. But again, of course, we haven't heard much about the prevention mechanisms. How are you going to prevent actually the voters list? Of course, you mentioned that more than 30 people are just registered in one single address, of course, and these days we are witnessing and we are hearing more actually from the citizens reporting on yet another cycle of this voter registration, which is pretty much questionable, of course, obviously. And of course, how you will ensure that the voter integrity will remain, the voters list integrity will remain actually at the standards, and what actually are going also to, speaking of course and meaning on all of the analysts, how are you going to respond to this? How are we going to prevent this, in other words? Thank you.
Actually, Mr. Lazović was speaking a bit about that, how to prevent the fraud that all of the participants anticipate.
Register of the voters.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at the last electoral process, in the last electoral process, we had a completely new fraud. We had internal migrations of the voters. Every time we have something new. I mean, I really cannot say that this time it's not going to be something new. I mean, we are doing what we can in terms of, trying to get this voters registry law, but in the end, you see what happens. I mean, it's not going to be applicable on the next election as we see. So, I mean, also this thing with REM, it would be good if we actually win this, not in a term that we have this moral win. I am a little bit fed up with moral wins. We want concrete wins in which we can use to fix this society. Moral wins are great, but this would be even better because that's what and I'm glad to share optimism with Maja, and now I'm trying to, to share optimism with Maja and others, that we might even get this, even from this bad situation, that some functional REM could actually in the end be won. So I would say that there are no guarantees how to stop this electoral fraud because the government is not, the regime is not sitting with crossed hands, and I think that they will try everything they can to do this, and we saw this in Kosjerić and Zaječar last time. We will see it for sure in Mionica and Negotin and others. We saw people are buying votes. We were actually chasing SNS activists around the fields of Kosjerić and so on.
I think they will do this the same, and we need to do whatever we can to minimize it, and hope that the motivation of people will be greater.
And with that in mind, how far from fair will be close enough to accept this battle and to enter the election?
Well, I don't think that anyone in Serbia or inside of political landscape, including students, sees future elections as just elections. I think everybody really realizes that this is a struggle or battle for life itself. This is a battle for oxygen, for survival. I don't think that there are so many calculations or, big strategic thinking about this or that inside of our ranks, because this went beyond any, let's call it, semi-normal political life. I know it's hard to explain to many people outside of this country, but as one of your honorable guests here asked, I think that it would be perfect scenario if we had a strength and wisdom to have something like Serbian Magna Carta, and we agree upon it before any elections. In the meantime, we have to do what we do, and we will continue promoting what we stand for and how exactly, through which ways we will change Serbia in the future. People should have a clear answer what you want to do with this country and where this country should go. And I speak on behalf of Party of Freedom and Justice, but I'm sure also on behalf of other colleagues in the opposition, by the way we function, I have to say perfectly, jointly outside of Serbia. We did a lot, I have to say, in our opposition diplomatic endeavors, and we work as a team. I think it's a comforting thought for me personally, but I'm sure for many people in this country, because actually you can see when we want, and we all want the same thing, and it's a normal, democratic Serbia with the rule of law, with basic normal freedoms of our people, without dictatorship. But then we have another crossroad, and that crossroad is where this Serbia will go, and how this Serbia will look like, and even more important, how exactly, let's say judiciary was one of your first, or let's say justice, first of your questions. Yeah, special prosecutor with its own police for corruption of the functionaries, no matter which party they belong. Yes, the law on the background of property. Yes, with seizure of properties. Yes, we have to go through some sort of a procedure that some people call lustration. I don't like the terminology, but yes, we have to see who actually captured this country from its people. We need to see who actually captured the laws and captured the media and institutions. And I'm not talking about criminal responsibility, I'm talking about moral responsibility. I think when you go around Serbia, we go a lot, even to smallest villages, people ask for justice more than for bread. And our people want to see some crowns in dust. And whoever comes, and I'm sure that this glorifying, river of changes will come and clear Serbia for good. I think this we have to have in our minds. We need to change Serbia. We cannot change the system simply by saying and wanting to change something. We need to explain how exactly we will change the system and where we will go as a country. We believe it's Europe. We have to go there. And forgive me for maybe being too long, but this morning I had a really long exchange at the Committee on Foreign Relations with Minister Marko Đurić, okay? So the question was, okay, there are alternatives for European Union. There are alternatives. But I don't like these alternatives. I believe that these alternatives are wasteland for our people. They're the cells, they're expels, they're arrests, they're beatings, they are, war. We don't want that for our people. That's why we need Europe. Not only because it's the best place for living, but it's the best house for values, and by the way, it is our home, and we are going back home we are not going to EU, we are coming back home. Thank you.
And you mentioned wisdom, so let's try to end on academic level as we started. So, Professor Popović, if you can wrap up in terms of what realistic scenarios exist for democratic renewal and what indicators should we watch to assess progress or regression?
I would like to phrase it differently because I would like to connect the two questions that were asked because I think this is the key. At the moment, no one opposition group in Serbia has a majority. And without a social contract, without some minimal agreement, and this does not necessarily have to be about the European Union. We're talking about basic rule of law to just get the system going. We need this. This is a prerequisite. We haven't managed to do it so far. We have witnessed the attempts failing before. Now we do have, I think, a responsibility toward these young people who want to stay and live in Serbia, that we have to make some kind of an agreement, call it a social contract, whatever. Why I think this is the key? Because then we have a sufficient number of people who can follow the elections properly, because as the other gentleman asked about the elections, we know they will be rigged. There's no doubt in my mind. And there is no trust toward the government. That's why no dialogue is possible, because there's no trust. But what we can do, if we are united and if we have this minimum of cooperation, we can shadow and follow the elections and come up with the result before a doctored version of the results is presented by the government. And then, as unfortunately we've had to do before, if the government does not acknowledge defeat, if it loses, and I hope that it will, then we have the moral right to protest against these elections and then move forward where it's completely justified to ask for international support in a way that is more than what we have now. Because unfortunately, all of the international players have played for their own interest, for their own, okay, I mean, it's clear everyone wants to benefit their own interest, but we had a transactional relationship with all of our partners. They are not our friends, and we obviously, as Serbia, fulfilled their needs. Well, now Serbia needs to tend to Serbia's needs, and any kind of international assistance that will lead to some kind of a result needs to be the benefit for the Serbian citizens, because for way too long we have a government that has inverted its function. Instead of being a government that serves the needs of its citizens, we are now citizens serving the needs of the government. And this has to change, and therefore I see the tremendous responsibility of all the civic, social, and political actors in Serbia that are fighting for rule of law. There has to be an agreement, and I think we have now the maturity in the opposition part of Serbia that this agreement can be made. So if you ask me how I see the future, I see this future being, let's say, a promising one if we get our act together and work as a team. We don't have to agree, and we can have ideological differences, but we all agree that no country can function without rule of law and independent institutions. And this is our chance, regardless of when the elections will be, but whenever they come, we need to be ready to function as one, and I hope and I believe that we will be successful in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank to all the participants of this panel. Thank also to the contributors from the audience.